Okay, Tom, you're all set.
All right, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Elmore. I'm the chair of the Connecticut Historic Preservation Council, and I'm calling to order part one of a two-part December 7th, 2022 Historic Preservation Council meeting. Part one of the meeting includes all agenda items with the exception of part two of this meeting relating to threatened properties, Deborah Chapel, located within Beth Israel Cemetery at 151 Ward Avenue in Hartford. Part one of the meeting will run from approximately 9:35 to about 10:30. There'll be a 15-minute recess between part one and part two. Part two will be conducted via Zoom. So if you're here for the Deborah Chapel part two meeting, you're welcome to stay, or you may leave and re-attend the meeting at 10:45 via Zoom. With me this morning are the following council members: Beth Ackley, Via Ducier, Beth Burgess, Paul Butkus, Marguerite Carnell, myself as chair. Leah Glazer will be joining us late. Christine Nelson, vice chair, Sarah Nelson, and Sarah Sportman. We have a quorum, so we'll get started. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's format and review of public comment procedures. Given the online format of today's meeting, and for those who are visitors today, I want to review and explain our procedures. The order of the presentation. I will read each motion and ask the motion to be moved and seconded. Staff will present the agenda item to the council. Council members will have an opportunity to ask questions. If called upon by staff, a representative of the organization may offer statements or address council's questions. For members of the public who wish to speak to the agenda item, we ask that you identify yourself and your affiliation. After all questions have been addressed and statements made, a roll call vote will be taken. If members of the public have letters and/or written statements they wish to submit to the record, please email them to Jonathan Kinney at jonathan.kinney@ct.gov. The Historic Preservation Council takes statements from members of the public but does not respond to questions. Lastly, please only address the particular agenda item being addressed at that time. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's policy regarding conflict of interest. The Historic Preservation Council votes on matters which provide leadership, service, and economic benefits to property owners, consultants, local governments, and not-for-profit organizations. Given this responsibility and to maintain the highest professional standards in the discharge of our duties, it is important to maintain a strong code of ethics for all council members and department employees. In order to avoid possible violations of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statement, it is necessary for the council to be aware of any situations in which there is a real potential or apparent conflict of interest involving anyone here. A conflict of interest may occur when a public official's participation in agency matters results in personal financial gain. All council and staff have been provided with a copy of the Department of Economic and Community Development ethics statement and governing state statutes. Having reviewed them and today's agenda, members of the council and staff are now asked to disclose any affiliation with entities or projects that may create a conflict of interest as defined by agency policy and pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-79 through 1-89 entitled Code of Ethics for Public Officials. Once disclosed, the member or staff may recuse themselves from that particular agenda item. Having read this statement, are there any council or staff members that would like to disclose a conflict or potential conflict of interest to any of the items on today's agenda?
I have one, Tom. I would like to recuse myself from the Trinity College National Register nomination survey and planning grant. I work with Trinity quite a bit and therefore would like to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Beth Burgess?
Thanks, Tom. I'm not sure if this is a conflict of interest, but with VB3, the Circuit Rider program through Preservation Connecticut, my employer benefits from that program, not financially, arguably, but definitely with advice and recommendations and working.
Well, considering we have a full complement of council members I guess I would ask you to recuse for that item.
Happy to do that. Thanks.
All right. Recused members are asked to leave the meeting platform. Staff will send a text message to members when they may return to the meeting. First item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from our November 2nd, 2022 meeting. The meeting minutes were provided to council members in Dropbox. Are there any corrections to the meetings as presented, the minutes as presented? Jonathan, have you gotten anything from anybody?
No, sir.
Okay, I saw one or two minor grammatical things that should be corrected. I'll send those to you after the meeting.
Yeah, just either email them to me. I'm happy to fix this. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the meetings with the minor changes that I'm going to send to Jonathan?
This is Marguerite, so moved.
And a second?
Christine, second. Christine, second.
We have a motion to approve the meeting minutes. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier, V, we can't hear you. She seems to be frozen. We'll come back to her. Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah's going to be late. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Sportman.
I need to abstain. I missed the last meeting.
Sarah, I think I heard you.
I need to abstain. I missed the last meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And V, can you hear us with a response?
She may have gotten dropped from the call, Tom. Let me see if she's coming back.
Yeah, she's in the lobby.
Yeah. There she is. She should be back now, Tom.
Okay. V, can I have your response to the roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes?
Yes, sorry, something happened and I was kicked out.
That's okay, not a problem.
No problem.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Tom,
everyone.
this is Jonathan. Can you just reiterate the who moved and seconded those?
Yes, Marguerite Carnell moved it and Christine Nelson seconded it.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. First item on the agenda is item 5A1, Historic Restoration Fund Grant for the Church of Christ Congregational Restoration and Reinstallation of the Chapel at 6 Litchfield Road in Norfolk, Connecticut. We have several procedural maneuverings per Robert's rules for this agenda item, so please bear with me. The unfinished action item was tabled at our November 2nd meeting for 2 months, which means the decision was made at that time to return to the council in January of 2023. In order to hear and discuss this item today, the council needs to change the hearing date from January 2023 to today, and we can do that with a 2/3 roll call vote. May I have a motion for a roll call vote to change the date from January 4th, 2023 to today, December 2nd, 2022?
This is Sarah Nelson, so moved.
And a second?
Marguerite, second.
Very good. Roll call vote. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah Glazer is going to be late. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Now, by a 2/3 vote, we can recall this item to the table for discussion. May I have a motion to recall this item to the table for discussion?
So moved, Christine. Sorry, Sarah.
We'll give the motion to Sarah Nelson and the second to Christine Nelson. Okay, so the motion carries. I'll read the original motion. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Historic Restoration Fund grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Church of Christ Congregational in Norfolk. Project, restoration and reinstallation of church's steeple. A grant amount, $200,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Tom,
Yes.
we've actually had a motion and a second to bring it back to the table. So all you need to do is vote to approve, and then that original motion is on the table.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So we have that approved, correct? So now I can have Aaron?
No, we have to vote as a council to recall to the table.
Wait, that's what we just did.
We made the motion in the second.
The first motion was to change the date.
Yep.
The second motion was to recall to the table.
Yep. But we didn't vote on that second motion.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Thank you. All right. So, yes, you're right. So to discuss the motion, no, to recall the motion to the table with a vote. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah's going to be late. Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Okay, so now may I have a motion? No, read the motion. So I read the motion. I'll let that stand so we can keep moving here. Aaron, would you bring the discussion to the table for us, please? Bring us up
Yes.
to date.
Thank you. So while the council approved of the project as a whole, there were specific questions pertaining to the materials and assembly methods proposed for the steeple and the spire. GNCB created design drawings and specifications, which they've been working on for the past couple of months. And these showed that they will be using steel wrapped in wood, because fiberglass can't be custom made for this, and SHPO did not feel fiberglass met the standards in this case. The wood will be African mahogany, and the assembly methods are shown in the drawings. And just a note, SHPO will continue to work with the applicant architects and engineers to create bid-ready documents as soon as possible.
Okay, very good. Questions or comments from council members?
I have a few questions for Aaron, and they're somewhat architectural. So maybe Charlie, I don't know if there's anyone also here on the architectural side, but I'm guessing that these are coming, but just to confirm, the design development documents aren't showing, I think at the belfry level, waterproofing that's wrapped up inside to protect the column penetrations.
Okay.
So that was a question that I had. And also, I guess I think I had this question when we first reviewed this, but when we are introducing steel on the outside, or, steel when there was wood before, it's obviously a change in the original materials. And so, how is the design team thinking about protecting, minimizing, creating longevity for the structure when we might have condensation behind the wood, and, just how are all those things, coming together? I don't know that it's all addressed yet in the DD document. So just what's the sort of design philosophy there?
Okay. I know that GNCB is on the call, and I believe maybe one of their architects as well. So I'm hoping that they can answer those questions. I see Marie. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
Hi, yeah,
I'll address the steel question. The steel will be galvanized, and I believe, and Tom Gribben can discuss the issue regarding condensation, but this is an unheated structure, so we don't anticipate that there's going to be condensation developing at wherever the steel is involved, which is at the belfry level and above. So, Tom, if you want to address anything else.
Sure. Tom Gribben from Noise Vote Architects. Yeah, so the columns are penetrating the existing belfry roof, and that's where we will have a fluid applied liquid waterproofing system. We're going to remove the existing EPDM roof and apply a liquid applied Kemper system. And so that waterproofing system will be flashed into those column penetrations. And that will be more or less a permanent condition. The connection between the steeple, the new steeple columns, and the well, we have stub columns coming up through that roof penetration. That's where the connection will be. And so they'll, in the future, if they ever had to take things apart, they could still disassemble this steeple from the tower. We don't envision they'll ever have to do that again. But anyway, so those penetrations will be flashed, and the new wood column enclosures will wrap the steel columns. And so they'll be connected with some type of a Z, stainless steel Z girts, and they will not. The base of these new wood columns will be held off the roof plane by an inch or two, so that water can freely drain around them. But the real flashing is at the penetration of the steel column. So we don't anticipate any type of condensation issues because, again, this is an unheated portion of the building. So there should be no real condensation buildup at all.
Okay, thanks. And so it sounds like you're already thinking about ventilation behind this sort of new veneer, essentially, by keeping it open at the bottom, and you don't need anything like venting or anything like that.
Yeah, no, the ventilation of the column between the steel column and the new wood column will be an airspace that will be freely flowing air from the base of the column right up through to the top of the column. So it's open at both the bottom and the top.
And then just something occurred to me just as you were saying that it might be advantageous to put some kind of a screen or netting under there so that you don't get critters making their homes up in there if it's big enough.
Yeah, sure, that's a good point. We can stuff the that you do for like a slate roof. They have like a it's like almost like a mortar net type of material. It just keeps insects from nesting in there. Yeah, that's a good point. And the tops and the end grain of all this these wood columns will be first treated with an epoxy, so we can keep the end grain from absorbing any type of moisture, and everything will be primed and then painted.
Okay, and then one last quick follow-up question to that. At the top of that level, where you're marrying the existing, I think, I need to go back and look, but you're marrying the existing wood spire into the steel frame. Do you have any additional insight on waterproofing at that level that you could share?
Well, the exterior, we're going to put new roofs on each of at the lantern level. That porch sort of roof will be that's going to be a new zinc coated copper roof, as well as at the spire. So all that's going to be new roofing. Right now, it's like a temporary asphalt shingles. So.
Got it. Okay. And then the connection of the where you've got the steel columns coming up and you've got the wood at the lantern wrapping up there. Do you have any challenges with any of the structural architectural coordination, based on what was originally timber frame and now a slightly different approach?
Yeah, well, Charles details a U-shaped bracket at the top of his column that will receive the wood timber frame.
Yeah, I can speak to that if you, so yeah, we'll bolt into there's a 8 wood timbers that frame out, into the corners and sides of the lantern. So we have a column at each of those locations. It will come up and we'll bolt into that. The tricky part that we foresee, and we've tried to allow for that, is when that may, the columns, we may not get the column, orientation might be slightly twisted compared to the, this is a, me trying to match into a wood frame. So at the column base connection below, where we have a bolted connection to the piece coming out of the belfry roof, we'll have some ability for some oversized holing there so that we can deal with some slight variations. So each of these columns will be kind of independent and made to match up to its timber. But then, when it comes down and lands on because we're building 2 separate pieces, one will be up at the roof built onto that structure, and one is on the spire, which is on the ground. So we need to have a little bit of flexibility or adjustment when those 2 connect together in order to make them match up.
Okay, thanks. So the column cladding is really almost a rain screen, and so whatever wind blown water comes in just kind of travels right through and down underneath and is free flowing. Sounds like. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
V, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, actually, I did. Tom answered my question when he was responding to Beth. I was trying to visualize regarding water penetration where the steel wrapped around the wood, but I think you have to bond for the flushing, and that addressed my question. So,
okay, great.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions?
Tom, this is Jonathan. Tom,
yep,
this is Jonathan.
go ahead,
I just wanted to let you know that Leah has joined us.
All right, great. Thank you. I have a question with regard to the African mahogany and change of materials and sustainability and harvesting. Do you know where the source is coming from, and can you control that?
No, I do not know where the source will be coming from. And I think the only way to control something like that would be to specify another material. I don't know as if I can control where that comes from.
Okay. Aaron, I guess I have my second question related to this is to you and to staff. You've come back, you're okay with the African mahogany and all the other details that are presented here, but I pose the question to you, if African mahogany was not the original wood, you're changing the wood species. And are you okay with that?
I think because it's still in kind, wood for wood, we are okay with that. We have seen people, change wood species before. Old growth wood and timbers is very different than current. So, we see that as well. I think it's from a staff perspective, fine. But I think, this morning we were talking about, sourcing these materials and what that does to the environment. So I think it's a very good question that is worth investigating. And, they could maybe consider a couple different types of wood that would be suitable, Spanish cedar, something like that, if it does turn out that, this is this is, you know, detrimental to the environment, mining this wood. So I think that change in species is okay with SHPO, but I don't think it's okay to impact the environment in doing so. So I think it requires some investigation, but I think that's something that we can look at after the council approves it and make sure, you know, what they choose is best by the environment.
Now that sounds great. So my follow-up question, if it's okay to change the species, can we entertain a discussion on using modern materials that include wood that are less or almost non-rot resistant?
Extruded.
You mean like boral or something like that?
That or exterior grade MDF, or, you know, there's a plethora of stuff out there. And I don't want to hold up this application, but, you know, we've been told we want to replace in kind, but you're not replacing in kind, you're replacing with a different species.
I think in this case, in kind means wood rather than fiberglass. And so that's why the SHPO staff feels that this is meeting the standards. It's wood for wood. And we're trying to find a type of wood that will be rot resistant and last as long as possible. We have looked at boral and hardy plank, and those are, certainly something that people use, but when it comes to our grant funding, we want to see historic materials used. That's what this incentive is for, to offset any, additional costs that might come from using wood rather than a substitute material.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council members? All right,
Tom?
Yes, Christine.
It's Christine. I just wanted to let you know that a lot of the exotic hardwoods are certified as sustainably harvested, if that was of concern.
Definitely is of concern, yes. And I know there's some suppliers out there, but unless it's specified and paperwork is provided, you really have no idea where it's coming from. Okay, so we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Via Ducier?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
Paul Butkus?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell?
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson? Put your thumb up. All right, that works. And Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 5B1. And Beth Ackley's recusing herself on this one?
Yep. See you in a little bit.
All right, thank you, Beth. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Trinity College. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian to prepare a National Register nomination for the Trinity Church Long Walk and Quad buildings circa 1870-1933, located at 300 Summit Street in Hartford. Grant amount of $18,000. May I have a motion to move this to the table for discussion?
Marguerite,
So moved, Christine.
Okay.
Second, Christine.
All right, thank you, Christine and Marguerite. And so a discussion. Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So staff recommends approval of this application. Staff worked with the applicant to determine the eligibility and the appropriate grant amount. We think it's great that One of the ways Trinity College wants to celebrate its 200th is by designating a portion of its property on the National Register. So Tom Yelich, who submitted the application, I don't believe is on the call, but I'll be happy to take comments and questions.
I believe Tom is here, Mary. It's
Oh,
Jonathan.
great.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Any questions or comments from council members? Paul?
I just had one question about the language in what they were doing, and it's a long-running topic, but it specifically says that the consultant will be selected from the provided approved list of historians.
Oh, yeah. Nope, not necessarily. And in fact, I'm surprised I didn't catch that. These projects are required to be bid out competitively. For this amount of money, the applicant can directly solicit at least 3 qualified consultants. Our office does have a list of people who have been determined to meet the Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards for historian or architectural historian. However, that list is always given out with a not a disclaimer, but it's not a recommendation. It's not an endorsement. It's simply a starting point, and the list it's not required to use that list. So I'm surprised I didn't catch that in the narrative, but they do not have to use any list at all.
Great, thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Via Ducier,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good, motion carries. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B2. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Town of Durham. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architect and team to develop bid-level plans and specifications to support restoration projects of the Durham Public Library circa 1901, located at 7 Maple Avenue in Durham, Connecticut. Grant amount $11,300. May I have a motion to move this to the table for discussion?
So moved, Christine.
And a second?
Paul?
Okay.
Great.
Okay, Mary.
Great. So staff recommends approval of this application. This applicant submitted an HRF grant application, I believe, for the September agenda, and it was tabled to allow the applicant to work with their architect to develop additional, or I guess some plans and specifications to clarify the work that for which the funding is being requested. So that's why they're here now. That's why it is a non-matching grant. It's going to support an HRF application. Christine Michaud with the Durham Public Library is here to answer any questions that I can't.
Great, thanks, Mary. Any questions or comments from council members? Sarah, yes.
Thank you, Tom. Mary, could you just explain, we've got 2 different budget worksheets in this application on page 37 of the PDF and page 40. Can you just help me understand how they relate to one another?
A minute. Oh, let me find that page. And then 40 you're looking at? I understood this to be, I believe, the entire budget versus the portion we're funding under this grant. However, if it's not clear, we can get clarification on that for you, or,
Yeah, so ultimately, I mean, I thought I understood what we were funding, but then I was just not sure because I couldn't get line items to match up. And I was trying to see if one was the total project cost and one was the specific cost, and it wasn't easy to figure that out.
okay, okay. And that was probably at my request for the applicant to come up with a budget that would kind of pull out what this grant is actually funding. And so that's on me. We can get clarification on that. But this grant, this survey and planning grant, is for architectural plans and specifications for the stair issues. So shoot, yeah, I can. That's what the funding is being requested for. Obviously, there's a larger total project cost. I believe that the original HRF grant application was just for the stairs, so that's why they're concentrating on that portion. However, I probably should have, or I should have pulled that out to make it clearer to everybody. If you like, that we can look at that and clarify that and bring it back, or you know, Christine and I can work together if you approve the this funding and just make sure that it's you know, in line with what the council thinks they're approving.
Why don't you take everyone's council members' comments in and we'll see where we are.
All right. Sarah, did you have any other questions? No?
I
Paul?
have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, V.
So I was thinking that this was for the on page, I think it was page 17. This was for that design and planning grant. That's correct, right? We were not supposed to look at the overall budget because I only focused on the design grant for the 11,300 on page 17.
That's what the funding is for, correct?
That's what I thought.
But it's going to support, well, it's going to support a construction project or an HRF grant. But it is within the context of a larger overall program. But this is a survey, and this is the survey and planning grant for the architectural plans and specifications.
Okay, that's what I assume as well. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, just on similar lines, in the conditions assessment report, in the budget for that, the line item for design services went through bidding and construction observation. And for this grant, it's only through the production of the drawings, not during construction. It's listed, you know, those services are under the excluded category, but the amounts are similar. So since November, or whenever the conditions assessment was completed, it looks like there's been an increase in actual cost proposal. So just notice that in this application, it could be just because it's just to get the drawings produced. But going along with Sarah's questions about the entire scope, you know, just coordinating which is which and what will be funded at what stage.
Okay, I mean, you're correct that we under this particular survey and planning grant, it will cover schematic design through construction level and then stop there. And then depending on the circumstances, the actual bidding and oversight can either be paid for by the applicant or sometimes fall into the HRF grant, depending on what it is. So, I believe they got this estimate after the September meeting. I think the actual condition assessment goes back prior, though. That's a couple years old, so that might be just cost escalation. it's clear that I need to take a look at this budget and make sure everything's in order.
May I comment?
Yes, Christine, go ahead.
I think the pagination of what you're looking at must be different from what I am, because on my page 37 and 40, we have like the land records showing we own the building. But when we came to, there are 2 grants on the table. We applied, we had Silver Petroselli do a condition assessment back in late 2021. Based on that, we put together a grant application to fund the reconstruction, which we talked about at your meeting in September. At that time, your council requested more specificity about the actual design, at which point we went back to Silver Petroselli and asked them to develop a proposal for this, specifically only doing the design and construction drawings. The cost for that, and that's what is before you right now, purely to fund that, so that you would have that information when it was time to reconsider the construction grant. We will almost certainly need to go back and get new proposed construction cost numbers based on the design and construction drawings, because they will need to, any construction company will need to see those in order to make a more accurate estimate. And I'm sure those numbers have changed because it'll be close to a year at that point. But my understanding of what was in front of you today was purely the design work at $11,300.
Great, Christine, thank you. V, you had another question?
Yes, so going back to what was just said, just to be clear, that the 11,300 is for the pre-development for the design, and the 35,000 architectural engineering is for the construction, which will be updated once the construction budget is updated, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Via Ducier?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
Paul Butkus?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell?
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Sportman? Sarah? Jonathan, is she still with us?
Let me check.
It's fine. We have enough
She
to.
is, yes.
We have enough to approve the application, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 5B3, and Beth Ackley is back. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Partners in Preservation grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation, doing business as Preservation Connecticut. Project, Circuit Rider Program for year 2023, grant amount $289,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Marguerite, so moved.
Christine, second.
Thank you. And Mary.
Okay, thank you. So staff recommends approval of this application. We've been funding the Circuit Rider program for several years, over a decade. And it's just, we've just been working on improvements over the last couple of years, and it's really grown beyond the general outreach that Circuit Riders were doing, sort of as a kind of prepping, for services from our office, to some really great individualized activity, such as helping do site visits for our easement program, and helping update National Register nominations, the older ones that need to be updated. So we're getting a lot of value for the investment. And it's just a great partnership with our statewide nonprofit partner. So we definitely want to see it continue. And Jane Montanero is here to answer any questions, or if she wants to say, well, it's up to you, Tom, but if she wants to say something.
Okay, great, Mary. V, your hand is up. Is that from the previous application?
That's from the previous. I will put my hand
You're
down.
more than welcome to ask a question. Are there any questions from council members? So, all right, seeing none, I have one for Jane, and I guess and for Mary. With regard to the archaeologist, has that person been involved long enough to make a difference? And if so, how's it going?
Hi, everybody. It's Jane Montanaro, Preservation Connecticut. Yes, we've been really pleased having the archaeologist on staff. He started out in January as a consultant for us, and we actually wanted to make him a full-time staff member at the beginning of this fiscal year. And we've been seeing a lot more. He's been going out in the field a lot with our other circuit riders, but he's also been getting a lot of calls directly, invitations directly for a circuit rider specific to archaeology. So I see that, the awareness of the need for archaeology with our historic sites is definitely growing, and having that person who can make an immediate response and get out into the field is really making a big difference. And we anticipate a lot more community outreach programming in the future, and just keeping up the circuit rider outreach. The program is really the bedrock of our entire foundation, just being able to get out in the field and advocate for preservation across all levels of the field has just been fantastic. And the support of the state office and the council just really makes this program thrive.
Good, that sounds great. Are there any questions from council members? Comments? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Via Ducier?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Oh, she recused.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I didn't write it down. Paul Butkus?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell?
She said aye, you just couldn't hear it.
Oh, okay. I will abstain. Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is 7.1. See in a second. Get my pages right. Historic Property Study Report. Pursuant to CGS 7-147 QC, the Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance and boundary for the proposed 11 Waterville Road, Farmington, Connecticut, as presented in the study report transmitted by the town of Farmington on October 5th, 2022. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
This is Sarah Nelson, so moved.
And a second?
Second, Beth Burgess.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction because I know we have some new council members from the last time that we did one of these. But, you know, you all vote on state register nominations and whether you think they meet the criteria and for listing. Another statutory responsibility of yours is to look at study reports that are submitted by municipalities that will go on to be locally designated as part of their ordinance. These local properties and districts are the ones that fall under the ordinance and fall under the purview of a local historic district commission. Your role as the council is to look at the study report and make any recommendations on the boundaries or the ordinance. In this case, we're going to be looking at 2 individual historic properties, so the boundaries are pretty straightforward, but sometimes you might see a district and you might, you know, have a question about why something is or is not included. Now, by statute, your comments are part of a review that happens, you know, within 65 days of submission of one of these reports. It's also being commented on by the local planning and zoning commission. So after this discussion or vote, I will just convey those comments to the town, and then they will move forward with a public meeting or hearing. And then in this case, a local property is voted on, and then there's 30 days that the property owner has to object. If this were a district, there'd be a ballot process. So the study report, and I'm going to try to be quick about this. The study report has to include a statement of architectural and historical significance, a map showing where the property is going to be, and the proposed ordinance. So this report is technically complete, and I will take any comments you have that I can convey to the town.
Great, thank you, Mary. Questions or comments from council members? Sarah, yes.
Thank you, Tom. Mary, this is a comment that goes over both of these applications that are on the agenda, and it is simply to commend the town and the property owners for taking this step. Having driven through Farmington on a fairly frequent basis, I realize the development pressures that are in that area, and I'm just thrilled to see and support an effort to document these historic buildings.
Yes, Paul.
Just a question. Are these 2 properties being added at the request of the homeowners?
Yes, when we see a property, that's usually the case, and it is the case. Yeah. Districts are generally recommended by the sitting commission, and that's why they require the ballot, because some property owners may or may not be in favor of it. So,
right, and so we see boundaries that exclude specific properties because instances where they would not be supportive of being included. So, I just want to make sure that that's the starting point is a request from the homeowner.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Mary, I just have one question, and it's like Sarah's, it pertains to both. When I looked at the map, I noticed that both of these properties, or neither of these properties, are contiguous to the district.
Right.
In amongst themselves. How does that work? Because I was under the impression that these districts had to be contiguous.
Yeah, and I had to double check with the town on that, because I think they're presenting this as a Farmington Historic District expansion, but it's really not. These will be separately designated local properties, so they don't have to be contiguous to anything. Okay. Now, if other properties kind of start to creep up close to them, I'm not even sure they could be incorporated. I think the statutes actually don't allow for that. I think they might remain locally designated properties, but that'll be a a technical issue we'll have to look at if other properties start encroaching. But for these purposes, these are just separately designated properties. Sorry.
Great. No, that's fine. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Via Ducier?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell,
She said aye.
okay, thank you. I will abstain. Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 7.2, another historic property study report. Pursuant to CGS 7-147 QC, the Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance and boundary for the proposed 26 Waterville Road, Farmington, Connecticut, as presented in the study report transmitted by the town of Farmington on October 5th, 2022. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Sarah Nelson, so moved.
Christine, no.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
So same as introduction as before, but a different property submitted by the town. And I will take any comments or questions to be conveyed as part of their process.
Any questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Via Ducier, V,
She said aye.
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Paul Butkus,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Motion carries.
Thank you
Mary.
very much.
Next item on the agenda is the report on State Historic Preservation Office by Jonathan Kinney.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to keep this super brief because we are running out of time. I will do this awards show style. Thank you very much to the council for all of your time and professionalism dedicated this year. And thank you to SHPO staff for all the amazing work you've done this year. That's all. I'm going to wrap it up there.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is report on of museum properties by Liz Shapiro.
Follow Jonathan's lead, everyone, and I will give you a very, very full and exciting report in January. Suffice it to say, the museums are doing well. We've been working together as a staff to move lots of initiatives forward, and I'll be excited to let you know about them more in January. Feel free, as always, to reach out to me if you have any questions in the interim.
Great, Liz. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is liaison with public and private agencies. Jane Montanaro, Preservation Connecticut.
Morning, everyone. Also, I was planning to keep it short, but thank you for your support of the Circuit Rider program. January, the Circuit Riders will be, and other Preservation Connecticut staff will be traveling to New Hampshire to do a conference with our sister agencies in New England and New York. So we do that annually, where we have a nice 2-day retreat talking all things preservation with similar field service representatives. And it's really a great productive gathering and a great way to start the year. So, happy holidays to everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all again in January. Thank you.
Great, Jane. Thank you. Next on the agenda is to identify or mention our next meeting, which will be held Wednesday, January 4th at 9:30, January 2023 at 9:30. And finally, an adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Christine.
Marguerite, second.
Very good. Okay, thank you, everybody. For those who are attending part 2, please join us in about 15 minutes via Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.